Now, let us prepare our hearts and minds for a time of meditation. I invite you to find a comfortable position in your seats. Close your eyes if you wish, and take a few deep breaths. And let go of any distractions or worries that may be on your mind.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, then I go inside and I quiet my mind. I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love.
And now I invite you to take a breath and go inside. Take a breath and go inside and quiet the mind. Yes, I take a breath. I exhale. I go inside. I quiet the mind. And then I know there is only love. There is only love. I open my heart. I open my mind. I open my heart and mind to love. Love. Love flows through me now. Love is always there. Love is always flowing through me. But in this moment in time, I become very aware of that flow. I become very aware of the flow of love moving through me. I am that love. I am. Love and I are one. in the midst of everything, in the midst of anything. Love is there. Love is always there. Love is everywhere. Breathing in, breathing out now. Being in the midst of that love, my body relaxes and the mind continues to quiet. And in that knowing of my own divine love, I become very, very conscious of my own divinity. The divinity that I am, that you are, that each of us are, that in the midst of whatever's in this human experience, I am love. I am divine. Love. Love flows through me. Love and I are one. I am love. Breathing in and breathing out. Moving farther inside. The mind is quiet, the body relaxed. The love is flowing. And I center myself in the midst of the silence, in the midst of love, in the midst of a time of refreshment, renewal. In the midst of love, I am. In the midst of love, in the silence, I am. Breathing in and breathing out. In the midst of love, in the midst of God, in the midst of my own divinity. Breathing in and out, I return to this time and place, to this present moment. And I bring with me love. Every moment, every day, I am love. I am love. So we give thanks for this time of meditation, for this time of stopping and renewing and refreshing and affirming the love that we are. As we take another deep breath and exhale, we slowly open our eyes and move ourselves and come back to this now moment and say, thank you. Thank you, God. And so it is. Amen.
There's a voice that's softly whispering inside my head, telling me I'm gonna be all right. It keeps saying, let yourself be led where you are led. Don't hold back and don't put up a fight. It tells me, trust the wind, breathe the air. There's a place you're meant to be, and you're already there. Open up your heart and let life in. You know that you can always trust the wind. When the world keeps doing things that I don't understand, and I search my soul to find a reason why, in the dark of night I feel somebody take my hand and tell me you don't even have to try, for you can trust the wind and breathe the air, and know that there are helping hands around you everywhere. Open up your heart and let life in. You know that you can always trust the wind. Oh, dreams have wings, thoughts take flight. All good things are streaming toward us every day. They hear our prayer, they know the way. I'm gonna trust the wind, breathe the air, let it take me on its wings and carry me somewhere. I'll open up my heart and let life in. I know wherever breezes blow, wherever shining winds may blow, I'm going where I need to go. I will trust the wind.
David Trolley. Thank you. Thank you, David Trolley. A beautiful song written by David Friedman, sung beautifully by our own David Trolley. So, will you come with me this morning? Will you trust the wind with me? Let's do it together. Let's just trust the wind, because there's enough going on that, let's get together and we need to put our trust in something. And And let's trust in the goodness of God together this morning. There is a little voice whispering inside each of our heads. You hear it. Can you hear it? Just stop for a moment. It's there. It's always there. Let's listen to it this morning. Let's talk about listening to it. Let's breathe in the air and let's trust the wind this morning. But before we begin to talk about that, I just want to invite you once again to come to the workshop that Paula Schneider's doing next week after the service at 12 o'clock. Paul has done this workshop many times, and it's about leaving your legacy. And it's such an important topic for us to talk about. I'm going to do my talk on it during the service next week. And I encourage you to follow up and really begin to think about your legacy and begin to think about the legacy of Unity of Davis and what your part is in that and what Unity of Davis's part is in you. And the legacy that not only surrounding Unity of Davis, but that you want to leave in your family, in your friends, on this planet, in this human experience. So consider joining that workshop. And also, there's a good grief support gathering last week, and we have 2 more coming up. I hope you'll join us. Just if you haven't registered to get the link, and it's at 4 o'clock on Thursday. Donna Tweltrich is going to be hosting game day again in August. Get ready. The last one was fun, and I think this one's going to be even more fun. I heard there's going to be some kazoos added again. I think that's going to be our mascot, the kazoo now. And then don't forget, chaplains, there's a meeting at 12:30 today after the service, chaplain meeting. And you know what? I came across these 3 boys in the schoolyard the other day, and they were bragging about their fathers. And the first boy said, I hear this. The first boy says, my dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper. He then calls it a poem, and they give him $50. Well, the second boy says, that's nothing. My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper. He calls it a song, and they give him $100. And the third boy starts to chuckle, and he said, I've got you both. My dad scribbles a few words on a piece of paper. He calls it a sermon, and it takes 8 people to collect the money. That was good. I know. I should quit there, but I've got one more. Oh, did you guys know that God is left-handed? Now, you have to have an anthropomorphic God to go along with this, but God is left-handed. Little Philip, they say, was spending the weekend with his grandmother after a particularly trying week in infant school. His grandmother decided to take him to the park on Saturday morning, and it had been snowing all the night before, and everything was just beautiful. And his grandmother commented to him, doesn't it look like an artist painted the scenery? Did you know, Philip, that God painted this just for you? The little Philip said, yes, God did it, and he did it with his left hand. Well, this confused his grandmother. So she said to him, what makes you say God did this with his left hand? Well, said Philip, we learned in Sunday school last week that Jesus sits on the right hand of God. See, I told you I should have stopped at the first one, but I had to do this one too. And because, I went ahead and did it because I'm trusting in the goodness of God this morning. I mean, you have to, I had to give it over to be able to do this talk. So I thought, oh, well, we'll just go ahead and do the joke. But, I'll tell you, with everything that's going on in the world today, and God knows there's a lot going on in the world today, trusting in the goodness of God is a practice that many of us open into moment by moment. We need to go there with everything that's going on in the world today. We need to take a breath. We need to stop for a minute, and we need to listen to that still small voice and trust that in the midst of everything, the goodness. the goodness of God is there. And in my human experience, the toughest situation for me recently has been moving through my cat, Miss Puma's illness, and knowing when it was time to help her move on from that illness and back to the spiritual energy she has always been. I mean, that's been hard, just to stay in the midst of that illness with her. And then when is it going to be time to help her? When is it going to be time to say, all right, thank you, Miss Puma, for your presence here. It's time to let you go. And that topic came up with close friends and relatives. It came up with my sister. It came up with Bob McAvoy. And my answer steadfastly, even though sometimes I had to convince myself of it, that God will let me know. God will let me know when it's time. We'll make this decision together. And God did. God let me know. The whisper came. The whisper came when I least expected it. Richard, it's time. It's time. And you're going to be all right, because the goodness of God is always there, always around you. And I responded, no, I'm not ready. How do I know it's really you, God? How do I know that I'm hearing that whisper is really you? And are you sure? Are you sure it's time? And right away, thank you. That whisper said, put your trust in me. Put your trust in me. You asked me to let you know and be here with you. And so I'm letting you know it's time. And boy, then I really had to put my trust in the goodness of God. For the next part was really hard. And I had to take a breath, and I had to open up my heart, and I had to let life in. I had to let the human experience in and know that God was there at the same time. Mary Comfortley, Reverend Mary Comfortley, writes this marvelous little book called Trusting in the Goodness of God. It's not easy to come by. There's some used copies on eBay and maybe one or two on Amazon, but Reverend Mary Comfortley's articles and her writings have appeared in Uni Magazine, The Daily Word, and other publications. And Judith Taylor's on with us today, Reverend Judith, and I mentioned Mary Comfortley, and she said, oh yeah, how wonderful. Because Mary Comfortley is one of those writers like May Rowland and Myrtle Fillmore, where every chapter almost says the same thing, but it says it in a different way, and you need to hear it. It's the practice. It reinforces it. Some of the chapter topics in her book are: let the greatness of God take over. God is always with you. God is your unfailing guide. These two are good. Your good is on the way. Your good is here now. Choose to believe the best. I am free. And there is nothing to fear. We need to read these things. We need to practice trusting in the goodness of God. Trusting in the goodness of God is not new. Mary didn't invent it. It didn't happen with Unity. We've been talking and writing about it and depending on it for thousands of years. And we can look back at the history of the Jewish people, and they're talking about trusting in God by looking at the Psalms in the Bible. And at the same time, we could look at what Reverend Kupferle says as well. Now, I don't know how familiar any of you are with the Psalms. I mean, I bet most of you know the 24th Psalm, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And the Psalms actually date back to the date, well, from the date 150 BC or shortly thereafter, it is generally considered to be when the Psalms were completed. And the book of Psalms is a culmination or a compilation of poetic literature of the Bible, and it's the noblest and undoubtedly the most beloved book of prayer for Jews and Christians alike. And the Psalms are similar. If you picture this part of the Bible, you go through the parts of the Old Testament, you get to Proverbs and Psalms, and then you finish up the Old Testament, go to the New Testament, and the Psalms is like Proverbs in that it is a compilation, and the 150 Psalms have been written over a period of hundreds of years, beginning at the time of David. And the Psalms really talk about the strifes and struggles and joys and the trusts and the love and the human experience of the Jewish people. And they sang about it in the Psalms, and they wrote about it and talked about it and read poetry about it. And so Psalm 77 is particularly one that talks about trusting in the goodness of God. And it was written by Asaph, who was a prominent Levite singer. And he wrote this in the time of weakness and distress. And I want to share with you here some of the psalm that Asaph wrote, and then at the same time share with you some of what Mary Comfortley writes in her book, Trust in the Goodness of God. And it's just wonderful to see how, going through this human experience, we always need to trust in the goodness of God. It's the grace of this, of it's grace coming into this human experience. And so Asaph starts out by writing this: I cried out to God for help. I cried out to God to hear me. When I was in distress, I sought the Lord. At night, I stretched out untiring hands, and I would not be comforted. I remembered you, God, and I groaned. I meditated, and my spirit grew faint. You kept my eyes from closing. I was too troubled to speak. I thought about the former days, the years of long ago. I remembered my songs in the night. My heart meditated, and my spirit asked, will the Lord reject forever? Will he never show his favor again? Ever been there? Why has God forsaken me? Yes, where is God in the midst of all this? I need the goodness of God now. Where is it? We've been saying that for millennia when something goes wrong. Why, Mary Comfortley says this to us in trusting in the goodness of God. Is something upsetting and disturbing you, dear friend? Talk it over with God. Talk about it freely with God. Tell God your doubts or fears or apprehensions, and God will respond and bring new courage, reassurance, and peace. If you are feeling hurt or disappointment in some area of your life or in a relationship, talk it over with God. Pour out your frustrations or feelings of anger, grief, resentment, or unhappiness. Tell God exactly how you feel and why. Everything you hold within your heart. Tell God. Give God all of your pent-up emotions without hesitation, and God will, in turn, open God's great heart of love to you. God will reveal to you the healing solution for every difficulty in your life. Good advice, and it does work, but it's not always easy to get there. And it wasn't always easy to get there for Asaph. Asaph in verses 10 through 12 begins to consider, just as Mary asked us to consider, to remember, to call forth all that goodness of God. Asaph writes, as he remembers, then I thought, well, to this I will appeal. The years when the Most High stretched out his right hand. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago. I will consider all of your works and meditate on all of your mighty deeds. Oh, yes. Gratitude. Yes, God was there. If I just remember, if I just take a minute and stop and say, all right, right this moment I'm feeling forsaken, right this moment I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I can't decide what to do. I don't want it to be this way. I don't understand. But wait a minute. I felt this way before. And yes, when I stopped, when I got out of the way, when I remembered that God was there, that the universe is there, that I am a part of all the goodness that is, and that goodness is a part of me, things began to move, things began to shift, things began to change for me. Mary Comfortley says to us, talk it over. Talk it over with God as you drive to work. Talk it over with God as you sit in a business meeting. Talk it over with God as you pursue each daily chore or as you walk down the street. Talk it over with God as you seek right decisions about finances, look for a job, help a family member, momentarily, hourly, daily. Talk it over with God. You will be led to the right paths of healing, supply, and happiness, and to the desirable channels of helpfulness and support. So talk it over. Don't hesitate to talk it over. Whatever you're doing, baking cookies, cleaning the house, whatever's going on, while you're swimming in the pool, talk it over with God. And as Asaph in the Psalms begins to remember the goodness of God and the times in the past that happens, he begins to meditate on ways the Lord has helped him through his darkest times. And in verses lines 13 through 20, Asaph's focus shifts from himself, because he was saying, I. And don't we do that? I. His focus shifts from himself to God. And even the word I disappears from his prayers. And rather than being encompassed by worry and fear, yes, rather than letting ourselves be encompassed in worries and fears, Asaph begins being comforted by the memories of what God has done. And we remember, we're grateful for that. And Asaph, who was saying, why have you forsaken me? Where the hell are you when I need you, God? Where are you? And not having the best feelings about this goodness, Asaph says now, because he's remembered and he's into the flow of life, he says, your ways, God, are holy. What God is what God is as great as our God. You are the God who performs miracles. You display your power among the peoples. With your mighty arm, you redeemed your people, the descendants of Jacob and Joseph. Oh, he's changed his mind, hasn't he? You are the Holy One. Is there any God greater than our God? Mary Comfortley says, she agrees with him, and she says to us, make it a practice to talk over everything with God first. There's that word. Did you hear it? Practice. Make it a practice to talk over everything first with God, whether it be of small or great importance. She says, and this is my favorite, become a habitual communicator with the source of all wisdom, the provider of all supply, the giver of every good and perfect gift. Establish lines of communication each day. Yes, moment by moment, so that you begin to feel more and more in God's presence and aware of the fullness of God's joy as you listen for God's response. So this week, I invite you to trust the wind, breathe the air, let it take you on its wings and carry you somewhere. Open up your heart and let life in. Know wherever the breeze blows, wherever winding rivers flow, know that you're going where you need to go. And know that you can trust the wind. trust in the goodness of God. Have a great week. Thank you for being here today.